I'm Ken Solin, husband, father, grandfather, men's activist, writer for the Huffington Post, and author of a new book, Act Like a Man. This gritty group memoir tells the real-life stories of 8 men who met over 2 decades to work out their issues. In her book review, one woman wrote, "Act Like a Man is reality television in a book. I've never read so much honesty." If you're a woman, this is a great way to gain insight into the men in your life. But Act Like a Man isn't just their story, it's every man's story of relationships, dating, divorce, marriage, unemployment, fatherhood, and more are every man's issues. But what separates the men in this book is they broke all the traditional men's rules. They opened their hearts and became vulnerable in a safe, trusting atmosphere, and they actually changed their behavior. 20 years ago, my life was a train wreck. I was angry, but I didn't know why. I feared loving women. I'd been in countless failed relationships and had no men friends. I noticed that few men had meaningful connections with other men beyond sports and politics. I wanted more, and I felt that other men did too.
A lot of people deny it and try to be stoic.
Our relationships with women weren't working because we were using the same model of manhood in our 40s as we did when we were 15. We needed to get together, cut the small talk, and get real. None of us knew what acting like a man really meant, but we agreed to help each other find out. We began by treating each other respectfully, not offering gratuitous advice, and sharing our experiences on an emotional level.
This has already created an incredibly safe place where I feel completely comfortable. And there's not many places, to be perfectly honest with you, that I feel completely comfortable. Like I feel at home, like I can be me. This is it.
At the very first meeting, I blew up and raged over a minor issue, just like I'd always done. I felt ashamed but clueless, and then one of the guys asked me about my father, and 3 decades of a violent boyhood and the pain associated with it washed over me like a roaring river. In that instant, I realized why I was such an angry man. I began healing that old wound and eventually stopped raging altogether.
So I just remember being absolutely terrified of my father.
When I was 4, my mom divorced my real father, who was in Utah State Penitentiary for life, and married even a worse guy. He molested all of our family members, raped me when I was a kid from the time I was 4 until I was about 13 years old. I was scared to death to come home from school.
Another guy had a different realization. He'd been married for decades, been cheating on his wife and his girlfriends. He didn't have any respect or trust for women. His profound comment at our first meeting was that a woman's best use was for pleasure and that he never had an intelligent conversation with a woman. The other guy sat stunned, but we all knew there was something behind his attitude that he hadn't told us yet. After several months of prodding, he broke down and cried, something we'd never seen from this tough guy before. He told his story about the excruciating pain of being abandoned decades before on a train platform by the woman he was going to marry. He said, "I stuffed that pain so deep I was sure it was never going to hurt me again." He'd never told that story before because, as he put it, he'd never trusted anyone enough. In finally feeling safe enough to tell his story, he discovered why he didn't respect women and why he didn't trust them. With this knowledge, he started changing his behavior in his marriage, and he began building intimacy with his wife.
I don't think I've ever told anyone this story. I'm putting my parents to bed at night, because they can't get up because they're passed out, or, they're screaming at each other, and I'm protecting my brother, and I'm cooking meals, and I'm doing laundry, and I'm like 8, 9, 10 years old.
I want to gain true men friends, not just surface friends. I want guys, you guys know more about me than my buddy for 26 years knows about me.
The unconditional trust the men in the group developed enabled each of us to tell our most painful stories and speak from our hearts. And the support these 8 40-year-old men offered each other represented over 300 years of collective life experience. Our wives and girlfriends noticed the positive changes in our relationships, and they respected the work we were doing together. When a guy tells me that the work I'm doing with men makes him wimpy, I tell him it takes real courage for a man to sit down with other men, tell his truth, open his heart, and change the behavior in his life that isn't working. What's really wimpy is a man who inflicts his issues on his wife, girlfriend, children, and coworkers instead of facing them and changing his behavior. Act like a man.